In section 2.1.15, an airline offers discounted flights from Atlanta to 5 American cities. Below is a frequency distribution of the number of tickets purchased for each location based on a random sample of purchased tickets. We're going to complete parts A through F. Now the first part, they want us to construct a relative frequency distribution of the data. So we're going to look at what's given. Now the first column is the response, which are these cities. And the frequency is the number of tickets purchased for each location. Now in order to construct a relative frequency distribution of the data, we first need to find the sum of all the frequencies. So we're going to have to add these all up to get that total. So we're going to add up those numbers and get a total of 4,176. Then we want to be able to find the relative frequency of each particular city by taking the number of tickets of that city and dividing it by the total. So 450 divided by 4,176 gives you 0.108. That is the relative frequency for Las Vegas. For Orlando, 1,120 divided by 4,176, which is equal to 0.268, and there's your relative frequency. And you would do that for the next ones. So therefore, here is our relative frequency distribution. Now, this number, in addition to it representing the relative frequency, it is also a proportion. Okay, so the next question states that what proportion of tickets were from New York? Well, if we take a look at New York, okay, the number that we get for the relative frequency or the proportion is 0.219. So in this case, the proportion of the tickets that were for New York is 0.219. Now the next step is that we want to be able to construct a frequency bar graph. Now if we did this by hand, a frequency bar graph is constructed by labeling each category of each data on either the horizontal or vertical axis, and the frequency of the category on the other axis. Rectangles of equal width are drawn for each category. So the height of each rectangle represents the category's frequency. So this is the solution of it. But what I want to do is I want to show you how to do this using StatCrunch. So what you would do is, on the problem itself, okay, you will notice that near the particular table that you're looking for, you have this little icon here where it says click to copy table. So when you click on that, you're going to have 3 options: open in Excel, copy to clipboard, or open in StatCrunch. We want to be able to become familiar with opening in StatCrunch. So we're going to go ahead and open that up. And sometimes if it doesn't open up and give you, you might have to redo it again. In this scenario, we were able to get the information. So it pulled that data in. You can see that it's got the response column and it's got the frequency column. So now I'm going to go back to the problem that we were working on, and we're going to use this using the instructions. So these instructions I give you in every week. You will see that there are StatCrunch video instructions in addition to the TI-84 instructions. So what we want to do is we want to use bar graphs from summarized data because the data has already been summarized. Now, if it's necessary, we're going to enter the summarized data into the spreadsheet, which again, StatCrunch has already done for us. So next part is that we want to be able to select graph. So over here in the menu option, we're going to select graph. And then we're going to go down to the bar plot. And so if you notice what I highlighted in green over here is that you want to choose with summary for this scenario. So we're going to select with summary. Okay. And then below that, I showed you here how you want to be able to identify what you need to put in here for each particular item. So the categories in is going to be the response column. The counts in are going to be the frequency. Where is optional. We don't need to worry about that. Now in part C, they want us to be able to construct a frequency bar graph. So where it says type, you're going to select which bar graph that you want. Since we're only concerned in part C for the frequency, we're going to leave it at frequency. And then we're going to order by. Now, there's options to order it by. You can have value ascending, value descending, the worksheet, count ascending, and count descending. Now, because in our problem it starts with Las Vegas, it doesn't say anything about ascending or descending. We're going to go ahead and select worksheet so that it goes in the order from Las Vegas, Orlando, all the way to our final one at San Diego. And then it says other if percent is less than. We don't need to worry about that. Now we can display the value above the bar so we can see what those amounts represent. So you can select that. Then it says the color scheme. You can decide which color scheme you want to use. Then we want to go back to now the x-axis label. Now you don't have to do this when you're doing your assignments, but when you're doing your project, you want to get associated with how to do this. So the x-axis label, we're going to call that American cities. And then for the y-axis label, it's going to be your frequency. And then the title, we can put in a title if we want to. It's optional, but I'm not going to do that. And then from here, I'm going to select compute. Now, when I select compute, now we don't see the color scheme that we have, but we can see that we have Las Vegas, which is L, goes to 450. We have Orlando, which goes to 1,120. And then New York, 915. Chicago, and then San Diego. So you can see how that graph matches that graph. And then you can select your choices from that. Okay, now the next step is we want to be able to construct a relative frequency bar. So a relative frequency bar graph is constructed by labeling each category of the data on either the horizontal or vertical axis and relative frequency of the category on the other axis. And then rectangles of equal length are drawn for each category, and the height of each rectangle represents the category's relative frequency. So the frequency has the number of tickets here. For the relative frequency, this is a %. So you can see that's the difference between your frequency and relative frequency. So in order to then find out how and to do this on StatCrunch, we're going to follow the same procedures. So again, we're going to follow the same procedures. We're going to go to graph and then select bar plot and then select with summary. And again, the categories in are going to be the same. It's going to be the response. The counts in is going to be the frequency. And then we don't have an option here for where. Now for the type, since we want to be able to do the relative frequency, we're going to go ahead and select that one. And then again, we're going to order by the worksheet. And then we can display the values above the bar. And then if we want, again, the x-axis, we can put in American cities. And then we have relative frequency now for our y-axis label. And then we're going to go ahead and compute. And so now what you can see here is that this goes from 0 to 0.2 to 0.4, and you can see here it goes from 0 all the way to 0.25. And then here we have 0.108, 0.268, 0.219, 0.226, 0.179, and therefore that gives us our results for the relative frequency bar graph. Okay, now part E, they want us to be able to construct a pie chart. So in order to construct a pie chart is a circle divided into sectors. Each sector represents a category of data, and the area of each sector is proportional to the frequency of the category. So again, this is the solution. But again, if we want to use StatCrunch, we can do that. So again, here are the instructions to your left. For the pie chart from summarized data, we're going to select graph. And now we're going to select pie chart. And we're going to use, again, with summary. And so from here, the categories in are going to be the response. The counts in is going to be the frequency. Okay, now the display, we can either display the count, the percent of total. We'll do all of them just so you can see what happens with a pie chart. And then we're going to order by value, ascending value, or we can go ahead and do the worksheet like we did before. And then from here, we can go ahead and label it if we wanted to. Well, there's nothing for us to label other than the title. And now we're going to go ahead and select compute. And now here we can compare this graph to this graph here. So we have L for Las Vegas, we have San Diego, we have our Chicago, we have New York, and then we have Orlando. And now the last question states that a local news broadcast reported that 17.9% of tickets purchased from the airline are for flights to San Diego. What is wrong with this statement? Well, the broadcast is making an inferential claim. You would review the proper methods for reporting inferential statistics to determine what is wrong with this statement.